Again, I'm just asking you, if based on the numbers, more Germans died than Brits in World War II, did that mean that the British were wrong in World War II? Because they did. Many more Germans died than Brits. Based on the numbers, does that mean that Britain was wrong in World War II?
Britain wasn't bombing civilians.
Own and destroy, let's go! Dude, get wrecked, double-digit IQ, Hamas supporting hijab-wearing degenerate woman. The problem is, and this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, the left, being a leftist actually means, especially when you're a Marxist, which is what being a leftist is, that notions of objectivity itself are abhorrent. So they're starting from a place of finding objectivity abhorrent. Okay, guys, so Ben Shapiro, this might be a longer video, although it's going to be interesting for sure. So, Muslim girl, clearly Muslim because she's wearing the hijab, and I'll call her a student. This student is openly hostile to Israel, is very pro-Palestine, wants the eradication of Israel, and is openly anti-Jewish as well. And she's facing off against Ben Shapiro, who is an intellectual titan that I think, by contrast, when you compare the level of mental ability, it's remarkable to see. It's remarkable to see how easily toppled they are, how easily overcome by intellectual scrutiny, coherent thought, and logic.
Starting fence that way. Face that way. Yes. Okay.
You're going to be able to tell in a moment that she thinks she's just going to be able to monologue and get people to agree with her because she's using the slogans, which, by the way, means battle cry of the dead. She's going to be using slogans of emotionality and anti-Israel rhetoric to emotionally overcome the obstacles that are in the way of her ideology. But what happens instead is she gets utterly trampled, not just by Ben's intellect, but by the expectation that he brings to the debate stage that she must engage with ideas and not incoherent, degenerate rhetoric.
So, Ben, your argument was predicated entirely on Hamas. But thousands of Palestinians, including hundreds of minors and children, are being held hostage by Israel without any charge, with well-documentation of abuse.
Notice the instant inversion of reality. Israelis are currently being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza, and we have posters of their faces. We know what they look like. We know their names. But what does she do? She says that Palestinians are being held hostage by Israel. It's incomprehensible.
Including sexual abuse, which Israel's own human rights organizations have reported. Hamas did not exist for decades after...
Right. The inversion of truth continues to pervade itself forward. There are videos at this point with hundreds of millions, billions of views that show Hamas taking women, raping them, and taking them hostage. So again, we see the inversion of reality. All evil can do is pervert and twist. It can never create. That's the reason why it inverts truth.
Israel's creation, and they're not in the West Bank. So, if you're going to be arguing about Hamas, how can we ignore that over 200 Palestinians have been killed, including over 40 children, making it the deadliest year?
They use the number 40 because they're inverting the number of babies that Hamas beheaded as well. Something to pay attention to is that this is Oxford, I believe. This is Oxford, yeah. I recognize the stage from when Jordan Peterson spoke there. The mental and ethical lawlessness of this degenerate woman, who's openly pro-terrorist and the destruction of Israel, is at Oxford. The level of intellect, the level of mental operation of the average leftist is so below even what you're seeing here that it really is an animalistic hatred called forth from the pits of hell itself to hate Israel, to hate the Jewish people.
For Palestinians in the West Bank before October 7th, that does not even include the killings happening now, just in 2023. So what justification do you have for that if Israel intends to, quote unquote, go after Hamas, is killing many people, especially children, under the justification of Hamas? So what justification do you have of them targeting the West Bank?
Every single person in danger in Gaza that is not a terrorist is in danger because of the terrorists. Israel has made it clear that all civilians are to leave Gaza. But Hamas says, don't listen to them. It's just enemy propaganda. And so what do? They stay and get buried under buildings. It's all on Hamas.
Bank, even if we were to buy anything you said, which honestly I'm questioning.
Sure. So the casualties that
Dude, it's like an intellectual titan, but only one that's 5'5", just walking up to the microphone about to obliterate her. It's so funny. They're almost the same height.
have been incurred in the West Bank are prior to October 7th. Largely, there have been many since October 7th because there have been many conflagrations between the IDF and the Palestinian Authority and Islamic Jihad members in the West Bank. There's significant violence over the course of the early part of this year. There's a breakaway group from the Palestinian Authority. It's called the Lions. The Lions were a small terrorist cell, the Lions Den. They were committing acts of terror in places ranging from Jerusalem to areas of the West Bank. And the IDF was going in and making operational decisions to kill many terrorists in these areas. There are many areas in the West.
The radical left isn't even capable of following what he's saying or representing ideas clearly. They can only see things in terms of identity groups. They think Ben Shapiro on the right, Ben Shapiro, Jewish, therefore bad. They don't listen to anything that he has to say. And that's remarkable because he's actually engaging on a level that is far beneath his intellectual capacity, the way he's talking right now. He's making direct eye contact with her, and he's speaking as if he's literally explaining it to her rather than explaining it in some sort of academic lecture. So once again, we see this divide between people who can think and people who can't think. And the entirety of the radical leftist caucus who hates Israel isn't even able to think.
That have been particularly infiltrated by terrorism. That the city of Jenin would be probably the example of the place that has been most infiltrated by terror groups. It's unfortunate, but Hamas is not the only terror group in the region. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is an excellent example of another terrorist group that has wide presence in the West Bank, more so actually than Hamas.
See, he's
the
explaining
Palestinian
it to
Islamic
her.
Jihad rocket, obviously, that fell on that Gaza hospital. The entire world then tried to blame on Israel.
If anything, I can say that the radical left is infuriated, and I do mean enraged, infuriated by how easily Ben Shapiro is explaining the reality of the situation to her and to everyone. That makes them furious that they could be resisted so easily.
I'm not allowed to respond, right? Okay. So if your entire argument, once again, is predicated on terror groups, what response do you have about the Great March of Return, which is a very well-documented incident where peacefully Palestinian civilians just marched to their own land that they have a right to go and return to? But
Watch, she's about to say, because Palestinians tried to march into central Israeli cities and were stopped at the border, that this is somehow illegitimate. Notice where you can see the origins of the disdain for borders that the radical left has. Pay
they
attention.
were killed, shot at, and murdered in cold blood.
What year are we talking about? Which group are we talking about? I need more specificity.
I'm talking about the Great March of Return.
I know I'm asking for more specificity because I'm unaware of all the details of what you're speaking about.
Documented instance where many Palestinians, after a tweet by a Palestinian, encouraged other Palestinians to go march peacefully back to their land.
Which land is theirs? What are we talking about?
Talking about occupied
The scrutiny of the question enrages the radical leftist.
Palestine.
Are you talking about in proper Israel? Where are we talking about? Like which areas?
See, they don't even engage with the coherent presuppositions to make sense of ideas. They were marching to their land. This isn't your land. Hello?
We're talking about on the borders of Palestine, and we're also talking about their right to return to Palestine.
There is no right to return. If you're talking about in Palestine, if you're talking about the land that is
Right.
inside the 67 borders, there is no right of return to Haifa. There's no right of return to Tel Aviv. There's no right of return to West Jerusalem.
So you have to remember that there are many, many, many elders who are older than the state of Israel. You have to remember that Palestine is not a Muslim land. You are equating this.
This is a massive loss. This is a blow to all pro-Gaza, pro-terrorist people on the intellectual front. This isn't really going to be a blow to them on any front other than the intellectual front, because the people that don't engage with ideas aren't going to watch this and take it for what it is anyway. But what you can tell, if you are interested in ideas, is that Ben Shapiro is utterly demolishing her. Completely demolishing. He's about to completely outclass her again. Watch.
To a religious conflict. It's not. When Palestine, before it was occupied, you had Jews, Christians, and Muslims peacefully coexisting. Palestine is not a Muslim homeland. It's a land that existed where many people that are alive to this day are older than the state of Israel.
So are you making the argument that any
Here, this is where he destroys her.
population of any time, all of their descendants now have a right to go back to the place that their great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers went?
Not
And-
great-great-great-grandfather. We have grandmothers.
Okay, grandmothers, grandfathers. Is that the idea that you can walk across the lines of any sovereign state and simply claim the place that you said that you had, even though you never established
There it
property
is.
rights in
He's outclassed her so heavily. Oh my gosh.
the Jordanian West Bank, or you abandon this place in Haifa? So your claim is that right now people get to walk across the border of a sovereign nation and simply set up shop in Haifa? This is your claim?
Random heckler, lol.
So if you're, okay, so even if you were to buy what you're saying, which is obviously not true, I encourage you to Google about the Great March of Return, which was a peaceful...
See, she can't contend with the presupposition, and this is the best of them. This is their best. This is the best they could put forward. And she got obliterated on the first analysis of an idea rationally and logically. This is the architecture of their degeneracy. It is tinged with a incompetent feminine temperament.
resistance against the wrongful occupation of Palestine, even if you were to buy what you were...
See, she just reverts to emotional, incoherent presuppositions. It's wrongful occupation. She didn't answer the question.
Can you just define wrongful occupation? Which part of Palestine is occupied?
You're not answering my question.
I mean, I'd like you to answer mine.
Terror groups. I gave you an example of peaceful resistance.
Yes.
I'll give you an example where people were wrongfully shot at, including children, and you still can't answer about why that's justified.
So, if again,
You keep talking about Hamas and terror groups, and you give examples of other terror groups, even though I give you examples of civilians
The impetus isn't on him to talk about other terrorist groups.
who marched
In this situation.
and were shot at. But even now, a few days ago, you had Palestinian people living in Israel proper, which is occupied Palestine, who were being shot at by farmers on in their gardens and in their farms.
Yeah, dude,
And
stop touching the microphone, you idiot.
those people are being able to get away with shooting them with total impunity. So why is it that
that's not true. Many of those people have been arrested. They're all currently sitting in Israeli jail.
the settler that just shot at a Palestinian
Have been
farmer
arrested.
was not arrested? I encourage you to look into this.
I did look into this morning, and can I please get one answer before you leave, because this is an interesting conversation. Which part of Israel is occupied Palestine?
All of Israel?
There we go. There
You go.
Yep.
Dude, they admit it. They admit their incompetence. They admit their incoherence. They admit their immorality. They admit their evil. When they want the right to exist, that is not the right to exist. It is the right to obliterate all of Israel. There you go. There you have it. The radical evil.
There we go. So what you're
Is
calling
admitted.
for is the obliteration of the state of Israel, and all of this is just a cover for that. I appreciate your time.
Obliterated. Walk away, bitch. Let's go.
Now like Harry Potter.
Dude, they can't stand up to our titans, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro. There is no intellectual equal. They have no intellectual equals.
Shut up.
And you could tell that he was mentally stooping down really far as well to engage with her low IQ.
Thank you, and may I first say thank you for coming to speak at the Oxford Union this evening. It's a real pleasure. I'm a theology student myself, and I was wondering, how do you reconcile your conservative political views?
Say into the microphone.
Or yes,
Yeah.
how do you reconcile your conservative political views with
The incoherent yelling and babbling from the back of the room. But he's a bad person. He hurt my feelings. The things he says are wrong, but I can't explain why, because the best of us just got demolished in under 3 minutes using ideas and logic. Their brains are destroyed.
religious values of compassion and your own Jewish faith, and your stance on the Israeli-Palestine war?
I don't see why it's uncompassionate to call for the overthrow of Hamas, a terrorist group in the Gaza Strip, which has been oppressing its people and stealing
Correct.
billions of dollars from its own people. Ismail Haniyeh is living in a 5-star hotel in Qatar, while his people are living in absolute misery because of a war that he initiated by killing 1,500 people inside Israel proper and then taking 233 hostages. I don't see why that's non-compassionate. It seems to me that compassion also requires that you obliterate terrorist threats to your own population.
Yeah, this is an amazing point, and it's something that I've tried to explain to a lot of people on Twitter, where acting morally means crushing the head of the serpent, if you were to put it into archetypal terms, I suppose. I'm not talking about civilians or women or children. Real terrorists should be obliterated without mercy. And that is actually good. Justice requires that they die. When you look at the videos of what they did, it's like the videos from 9/11. It was not possible for America to not go to the Middle East and stack bodies as a result of what happened on 9/11, as a result of what Al-Qaeda did. In the exact same way, it is not morally possible for the IDF to do nothing after Hamas murders, slaughters families and children in their homes, in their beds, takes women, rapes them, and takes them hostage. It is not morally possible for the IDF to do nothing. It is morally required for them to crush the terrorists and liberate the hostages. The people that deny that are morally relativistic, which is what I'm wondering if we're going to encounter here in this young guy. There are a lot of young people that are psychologically weak enough to be moral relativists.
Thank you. I'll go to the member you're calling here.
You should have asked him if he was a moral relativist and just exposed his weakness. I wonder if those are the hecklers.
Well, I'll try my best. Hello, Ben. It's good to see you. I've been watching you since 2015. You started my conservative journey, and
Let's go.
here we are. I saw, unfortunately, you had to bring some pretty gruesome photos, and I have to say, I hope those photos aren't real, and I have my doubts because recently you posted an AI-generated image of a charred infant corpse.
No, I didn't. That is a lie. That is untrue. It was not an AI photo. It was not an AI photo. It was distributed by the Israeli government and the Prime Minister of Israel. It was verified by the United States government. That fake community note that said that it was an AI-generated photo was in fact taken down by Twitter because it was a fake community note. That is unfortunately not an AI-generated photo.
Obliterated and destroyed.
I wish it were.
Dude, it comes full circle. He started his conservative movement. He probably became some sort of libertarian or low-resolution conservative, and now finally has his moment to speak to Ben Shapiro, and then he gets obliterated by facts and logic. Oh, dude. You can't make this up, dude. You can't make this up. Ben Shapiro is dangerous. Dude, he's dangerous out here.
It was a baby obliterated beyond recognition because it had been burned to death.
So is it the word of the IDF in Israel versus the word of
No, actually, it's the photo. It's the actual camera footage taken by GoPro cameras by Hamas terrorists as they invaded Israel proper. I don't have to take Israel's word for it. A lot of this stuff was live streamed.
Owned by facts and logic.
as you're posting to social.
This is really big. It's great to see them get demolished and exposed as the intellectual midgets that they are. They're only driven by hate and low-resolution resentment. It's funneled straight in from Marxism. There's a reason why leftists in New York are all marching for Hamas hours after they raped women.
Sorry, it was the member behind you. It was the member at the very back. Yep. I'll come to you after.
This might be a longer video, but I think it's important to expose what's going on and appreciate the dishonesty to which the pro-terrorists are coming with. By the way, this Muslim's thick for sure. Thicker they are, the lower the IQ, though. I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's true.
Hi. If Israel is justified in killing civilians because of the acts of terror committed by Hamas, why isn't Hamas justified in doing what it did? Because Israel is keeping 13,000 children.
What an evil thing to say.
It has tried them in military courts. Since the establishment of Israel, 55,000 Palestinian homes have been bulldozed. So why isn't Hamas justified in doing what it did if we use your logic?
So I'm going to answer your question, then I'm going to ask you a question if you don't mind. Is that all right? So so my answer is that Israel would not be justified in killing Palestinian civilians because of the actions of terrorists. Israel would be justified in attempting to kill terrorists, and civilian casualties are a cost of war. That is just...
Yeah, and again, Israel is telling the civilians to leave Gaza, and they are being prevented from leaving, and told that the Israeli instructions are propaganda from Hamas. Or Hamas is telling them that it's Israeli propaganda when it is actually instructions.
It's a reality of life. During World War II, there were 70,000 Brits who died during the Blitz bombing, and there were 2 million Germans who died, civilians who died during World War II. And I don't see a lot of monuments in Britain because of the 2 million civilians who died in Germany. The costs of war are brutal. They're terrible. They're horrifying. There's a vast difference in moral scope between deliberately going into a civilian area and murdering everyone you can find and trying to kill a terrorist.
And that is exactly what Hamas did.
Who is deliberately hiding beneath a civilian area, hiding their rockets in civilian areas.
Venice, so sharp.
Starving their own people. Okay, so let me, now I get to ask my question, if you don't mind. So my question is, do you believe that there is a moral difference between Hamas going into, for example, Kfar Aza, and Israel attempting to target terrorists and accidentally hitting civilians?
Israel is effectively doing the same because Gaza is the most densely populated region in the world. There are 15,000 people
She's just reading from notes now. What she wrote down before, it's not an answer to the question.
per square mile.
So does Hamas get
Over
immunity
half of
because
the
they're there? So
population's
Hamas gets
children.
immunity. So
Israel has killed 3,500 children in the past 3 weeks. That's more children. That's more children than have died in conflicts around the world in each of the last.
Notice how they're not interested in engaging with ideas. They're just interested in reading out propaganda. That it's not correlated with any fact or investigation of true morality at all.
So just to be clear, your logic is that if you're a terrorist group located in a densely populated community and you hide behind civilians, you are now immune.
Where are the children meant to go?
So you're immune. Okay. That's a
Where are they
violation of
meant
the
to go?
Geneva Conventions, but okay. You're now immune. Your logic is that if you're a Hamas terrorist...
She's enraged now. She's enraged because everyone sees her, all the thinking people, see her as immoral and fraudulent as she wields the counterfeit banner of virtue bestowed by the radical left.
Sorry, since 2005, 23 out of every 24 conflict deaths have been Palestinian. I don't see
The thicker they are, the lower the IQ. I guess in this case it was true.
any moral equivalency there. It's clearly unjust what the IDF has been doing to the Palestinians because there's a vast disparity between the number of Palestinians being killed and the number of Israelis.
I mean, I would
The
certainly hope that
disparity
Israel is
huge.
killing more Hamas
This isn't a
members.
conflict. This isn't a conflict. This is one-sided ethnic cleansing.
Again, I'm just asking you, if based on the numbers, more Germans died than Brits in World War II, did that mean that the British were wrong in World War II? Because they did. Many more Germans died than Brits. Based on the numbers, does that mean that Britain was wrong in World War II?
Britain wasn't bombing civilians.
Owned and destroyed, let's go! Dude, get wrecked, double-digit IQ Hamas supporting hijab wearing degenerate woman.
There's a clear difference.
You should talk to the people in Dresden, but you can't because they're dead.
There's a clear difference. Well, I agree that war is horrible.
Outclassed in every angle, every conceivable way that is tethered to a moral investigation of or coherent investigation of any ideas. This is also, by the way, where you see like even Tristan Tate honestly getting outclassed on Twitter. He's no longer in the arena of being rich, driving supercars, smoking cigars, or kickboxing. When he's engaging with intellectual titans, you see him very easily, and I'm referring to Ben Shapiro in this case with Tristan Tate. Ben Shapiro, honestly, it was one of the few times I've seen Tristan objectively embarrassed. Not that he necessarily felt embarrassment, maybe he did, but I'm saying in the eyes of objective merit to ideas, he was outclassed.
This is not a just war. What Israel is doing is not a just war. There is a difference between fighting the Nazis.
So it is not a just war.
Fighting the Nazis.
It is not a just war.
Right, because the Nazis are the people on the right. They are the people that are pro-Israel, even though they are the ones that hate the Jews. Oh, wait a second, you're on the same side as hating the Jews. And then they, once you investigate any of their ideas, it just completely disintegrates. It implodes. So their ideas are built on sand. They're built on nothing. Their presuppositions are rotten.
Or when you fight a war against people who murder 1,500 of your civilians and take 233 of them, at last count, captive into tunnels, it is not a just war to obliterate them. Please name a just war.
Israel's been killing civilians for the past 75 years.
Dude, Ben just destroyed her.
And there was no headlines about it, and nobody said that the Palestinians were
Israel
justified
does not purposefully kill
retaliating.
civilians. Palestinian terrorists do.
Israel has not purposefully
If Israel
killed
put down its
civilians. Are
guns
you willing
tomorrow,
to stand by that statement?
if Israel put down its guns tomorrow, there would be a second Holocaust. If the Palestinians put down their guns tomorrow, there would be a Palestinian state.
Palestine to the sea, meaning obliterate Israel. They are openly hating Jews.
Ask you the last question, the same question I asked her. Which part of Palestine is occupied?
The entirety of Palestine, but I'm not calling for the destruction.
Dude, owned and destroyed.
I appreciate you expressing your full genocidal intent for the Jewish people living between the rivers.
Why is it genocidal?
Destroyed and owned. Oh, and now she's mad. Now she's enraged. Now she's mad because we can all see the fact that she is the evil one. She is a part of the group that is openly pro-terrorists.
That is not apartheid. You can have a state where all citizens have equal rights, Jews and Muslims.
I'm sure that's going to go
That's not
amazingly
genocidal.
under the same people who are governing the Gaza Strip.
Oh, they're so angry at Ben. Dude, the number of people that are hating Ben Shapiro for exposing their moral, intellectual inadequacy, nay, total bankruptcy. They are so mad, dude.
Currently, 0 Jews
In the
live.
interest of time, can we move on to the next question, please?
Destroyed. Dude, line them up. Is this the best you got? The problem is, and this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, the left, being a leftist actually means you, especially when you're a Marxist, which is what being a leftist is, that notions of objectivity itself are abhorrent. So they're starting from a place of finding objectivity abhorrent. That sets them up to lose in any domain of investigation. And you see this every single time. That's the reason why they revert away from analyzing things coherently, scrutinizing ideas for their intrinsic merit. They have no interest in that because their ideology actually says that notions of objectivity are oppression. That's the reason they lose. That's the reason why facts own them. That's the reason why they get triggered when you force them to engage in parameters, in a framework that reveals objectively that what they say doesn't make sense. And it's happened over and over. I mean, this might be a long video, but it's worth, dude, I think that this is worth seeing. Obviously, a lot of other people do too. 1.5 million. Next victim.
Sorry.
Next victim of inadequacy, of incompetence, of immorality. Show your face and get humiliated.
Ben, it's an absolute
He hasn't made eye contact yet. He's a coward.
displeasure to see me standing. Ben, it's an absolute displeasure to see me standing. Well, it's absolute. I will get to my question.
No, we're gonna cheer because this is the only time we can applaud when we insult him subtly, but not so subtly because we're low IQ.
However,
Thank you for coming anyway.
my displeasure. Now, I'll repeat the question that I sought to ask you.
They don't like free speech. They don't like your existence. It's the exact same reason they want the abolition of Israel. They hate your existence. They hate the fact that you can reveal them as the frauds that they are, as the immoral cowards that they are.
You have recently been discussing a lot about the history of the occupation of Palestine. I will call it that. I know you will oppose that, but I will call it that. The occupation of Palestine.
The whole thing, right? Just to be clear?
The entirety of Palestine.
Thank you.
You may accuse me of genocide if you wish. That is not my position.
Sure. And I will, but go ahead.
Anyway, so the point about the occupation of Palestine, you have released...
Think about what he just said. You may accuse me of genocide. He didn't then say why he's not supporting genocide, because he's not interested in having ideas. This is how dangerous they are. This is a Freudian moment. What he just said is a Freudian moment. Think about that.
Palestine.
Thank you.
You may accuse me of genocide if you wish. That is not my position.
Sure.
And then he said that is not my position, but he just admitted that it is.
And I will.
And he's not demonstrating that it's not his position. He's just saying it's not. See, again, they're not engaging with ideas.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so the point about the occupation of Palestine,
Let's see if he does demonstrate
that
that he's not pro-genocide.
multiple videos. You have essentially made yourself the cheerleader of Israel in a lot of sort of Western media spaces. So I watched some of your videos about the conflict, and I found a number of inaccuracies. First of all, you described...
Okay, I'm really curious to hear these listed inaccuracies, but first, I want to remind people that this is the best of who they have to offer. These are Oxford students that know how to write, they're even literate, they can think, and they even read Foucault. They know what the Communist Manifesto says, they didn't just hear it from a Twitch streamer. So this is really the best they have to offer. Most of them can't even engage with ideas. I can guarantee that 90% of people who watch this video, maybe 80% at least, are able to engage with ideas and therefore side with Ben Shapiro and against genocide.
In 1920, you referred to Jordan as part of Palestine historically. That has never been the case. There has never been a state of Jordan.
British Mandate Palestine, yes.
That is still not the case. Jordan has never been part or considered part of Palestine. The only time that...
It's funny how people try to claim what he tweeted when he knows what he tweeted. And then he just says that's not what I tweeted, and then there's nothing they can do.
Jordan has been considered adjacent to Palestine, is part of sort of biblical mythology where Transjordan was a reason.
That's wildly inaccurate. The
That
British,
is factually
British
true.
mandate had a mandate over
Please
all
let
of
me
Palestine,
continue.
and then
Let me-
they separated off Transjordan and handed it to the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan.
You will get your chance to reply. Let me finish. Now, the second point that you have phrased constantly and consistently, and it's quite a...
Wait a second. Oh, the fat guy that was messing with Ben Shapiro's microphone was clapping just there. Okay, so we know that he was an operative. We know that he was some sort of pathetic, yeah.
popular Zionist talking point is the fact that the Arabs have rejected peace every time it was offered to them. Now, I would like, of course, there's been multiple times where peace has been offered, so let's discuss some of them. The Peel Commission. The Peel Commission entailed expelling multiple Arab families and multiple Arab communities, largely agrarian, from the land in order to create a Jewish state under a colonial authority. Now, I understand, of course, you are a Zionist, so you believe that's desirable. But for the Palestinian farmers, I can imagine they would not have enjoyed that. Number two, you mentioned that the, that after 1948, the Arabs had the chance to negotiate and make peace with Israel. Apart from the fact that in 1956, Israel invaded the Sinai in Egypt, unprovoked, purely due to the fact
This is just
that
misinformation. This is fake history.
President Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Then you claim
They invert history in the same way they invert morality.
that the 1967 war was a war of extermination. But if you will read any trusted and respected historian over the 1967 war, and perhaps you may even decide to read some of the books of Moshe Dayan about the actual conflict, where he describes that Israel actually provoked the conflict and there was no chance of the extermination of Israel. Then you claim that the 1973 war was a war of the destruction of Israel once again, which it was not. It was actually the reclaiming of the Sinai and the Golan Heights, which Israel has illegally occupied. So,
Oh, you can see, yeah, you can see this fat operative that was messing with Ben Shapiro's microphone nodding to the misinformation.
you have lied multiple times. I can continue if you would wish, but I would like to ask you the question. When you lie, do you feel shame?
Okay, so. In order for me to feel shame, I would have to be lying, as opposed to you just being wrong about all of these things, which you are. So let me start from the very beginning of what you said.
The problem with the degenerates clapping in favor of anti-information or anti-morality is that then it forces the people that are interested in ideas to clap for Ben Shapiro saying things like "you're wrong," and then time is wasted.
Let's try to go through the calendar. British Mandate Palestine was ruled by the British. They carved off Transjordan in 1920, and Transjordan was made into Transjordan with the Hashemite kingdom, which, by the way, is not domestic to the actual area of Jordan. So if you're talking about a colonial outpost, Jordan would be it, since the Hashemite kingdom has nothing to do with the actual Palestinian Arabs who are living in Transjordan. Talking about the Peel Commission. If the idea is that there would have to be a separation of populations in order to effectuate a two-state solution, which you deny, then I was right. Of course, there was a deal on the table. The Jews accepted it. The Arabs rejected it. So you did not actually undermine my case.
In his
There should be no deal in the first place.
in his diary states.
Hold on. I listened to your whole bullshit history for like 5 minutes here. So at least let me respond to it.
It's funny because he tried to. It's funny because this pro-terrorist degenerate tried to suggest that. Tried to say Ben Shapiro was talking when he shouldn't be, and now he's doing that times 3. But see, rules for thee, not for me.
Your entire claim is that the Arabs did not reject peace, and then in your own disquisition, you admitted that the Arabs rejected the Peel Commission plan, which was a separation between the Jews and the Arabs, which gave an extraordinary amount of land to the Arabs. The Arabs then rejected the peace...
And I can guarantee that the pathetic pro-Hamas terrorists at the back of the room that sent this guy up thought, oh, he's going to be our guy because he's been able to memorize some fake history. Meanwhile, he just got obliterated.
Plan proposed by the United Nations in 1947. They then...
The state of their intellectual ability is very, very sad. And again, this is the cream of the crop of what they have to offer.
Proceeded to reject the Oslo Accords in 93. After that, they rejected the Wye River Accords in 98. They rejected Ehud Barak's very generous offer in 2000. They rejected Olmert's very generous offer in 2008. Every single peace deal that has been proposed by Israel or anyone else has been rejected by the Arabs for a very simple reason, which was the very first question I asked you. You do not accept that there should be a Jewish state anywhere in this region. So as long as that's the case, there's literally nothing to argue about. You cannot simultaneously maintain the position there should not be a Jewish state anywhere in the region and then tell me that
there should be a peace solution where they can come to an agreement.
Wrong when I say that the Arabs will not accept a two-state solution. You yourself say that there should not be a two-state solution.
Right, exactly. Right. You said that you wouldn't accept a two-state solution.
So the first point that I'll firstly address.
That guy's nose is way bigger than Ben's nose.
That you made about the Palestine and whether there should be a Jewish state. You're suggesting that the Arabs will not accept a Jewish state. Well, the reason that the Arabs would not accept the Jewish state is multifaceted.
It's complex.
Let me finish. So, the reason that it's multifaceted is due to a variety of dynamics. The Zionist movement arrived as a settler colonial project, and it is described as that. You can read the books of Jablonski. You can read Zionist literature from the early 20th century. It states that it was a colonial project. Now let's address the lies that you mentioned. Let's address the refutation that you made. In 1937, the Peel Commission, if you read the diaries of David Ben-Gurion, he explicitly states that the partition that the partition was a temporary move to ensure the conquest of the full land. In 1948, there had already been an intercommunal civil war in Palestine, which had seen Jewish defense forces versus the Arab forces. There was already a conflict that preceded 1948. To claim that the Arabs simply rejected the UN partition plan is once again ahistorical. You then make...
They literally rejected it. How could it be ahistorical if they literally rejected it?
If there was a war beforehand,
and once again, you just reject fundamentally the existence of the state of Israel, period. So how can...
to interrupt you, I was told to silence. So I would ask you again, please shut up. My point now, I would like to continue.
That's not
I would like to continue, and you then mention the what was the peace plan you mentioned after?
Okay, which one should we do? Should we do the?
We finished 1948. What after?
Okay, so there was the 2000 peace plan from Ehud Barak. There was the 2008 peace plan from Ehud Olmert. There was the pullout of Israel from Gaza Strip in 2005, handing it over to Hamas.
Let's get the next person up now.
All right. Thank you very much.
Why did they send him away? Continue his humiliation.
One final note, there can be no two-state solution when literally you will not accept the possibility of a two-state solution. That is the end of the story. There is no further discussion.
So let's do the ex-president on the front bench.
Did they say the ex-president? So the ex-president of Oxford is probably pro-Hamas.
Thank you, Ben. I'm not going to ask any questions about Israel-Palestine, but I wanted to ask something about what you touched on in your opening remarks. You said that the reason you feel called to speak out, one of the reasons you feel called to speak out about what's going on in Gaza at the moment, is that you think that it is a question about the West standing up for its values and asserting its identity and knowing what it is. I put to you that perhaps the reason that that is so controversial, and you saw 100,000 people marching in London on Saturday before that, etc., is that the West, or many countries in the West, no longer have a sort of common sense of what they are as nation states and therefore what they should stand for. Do you think that's true?
Yes.
What do you think the consequences are?
That's definitely true.
I mean, I think the consequence of that is dissolution of the West. I mean, if the West is not going to be muscular in defense of whatever it believes its core values to be, then of course it's going to be overtaken by alternative sets.
Yeah, okay, so a core aspect of what it means to be a degenerate is to be psychopathic and predatory. So as you, a psychopath as they operate is only responsive to the consequences for their actions. So as the radical left operates in a psychopathic and predatory manner towards notions of objectivity and objective morality, the only thing that will keep them in place is the consequences for violating morality or laws. If there is no consequence for committing crimes, for instance, then the degenerate psychopaths will endlessly commit crimes because the only thing that they don't feel any humanity, as obviously most of them don't who support Hamas. The number of psychopaths that have come out of the woodwork to literally support a terrorist organization even hours after they raped and murdered women and children is astounding. You can see that the only thing keeping them in a mode of operation that doesn't result in the total collapse of society is that there are consequences for acting against moral order, for acting against humanity.
The values.
Is it the replacement of the West if it just adopts a new value code?
Yes. I mean, if the West is to mean anything other than a location, it's going to have to mean a set of values. And those values traditionally in Britain have meant things like classical liberalism. They've meant things like freedom of religious worship. These are all aspects of the now Anglo-American system that have been adopted across the pond as well. And when those values fall away, what you end up with is a morally relativistic state that cannot stand up for its own values and has no reason to continue.
And it's self-evidently totally unstable. That's the reason why the Middle East is unstable.
Do you think that collapse of a communal moral code is now inevitable?
Not at all. I don't. In fact, I think that there is going to be quite a backlash to the insane self-blinding that has taken place by the West. This belief that everybody is at root thinking the same sorts of thing and engaging in the same sort of incentive structure.
You literally see people coming up on stage and saying Israel shouldn't exist, that they are openly hostile to Jews, they openly support the genocide of Jewish people. That is proof to people. You are seeing, and at this point, millions of people are seeing. By the end of the week, it will be multiple millions. The thinking moral caucus of good humans are not in the same category as people that are openly calling for the genocide and removal of Jews and the removal of Israel as a state.
Nothing.
And by the way, all these people that repeatedly admit that they are against the existence of Israel are forced to do that, not by the question so much, but by their adherence to their ideology. For if they were to say, I'm not totally against genocide, then they would no longer be good people. And that's how twisted their ideology is. That is how ruined the left-wing mind virus makes people. It ruins their lives. The woke mind virus has claimed the lives of many, many people.
That is the case. I don't think the West always believed that. This is not to say the West is perfect, that the West hasn't made enormous and horrifying mistakes. The West certainly has. But the West value system is certainly better than the other value systems that have been made available to the planet over the course of the last couple of centuries.
I'm sure you'd agree with me in that the foundation of a lot of the moral code of
and that's definitely objectively true.
The West is sort of Judeo-Christian. Do you think that mass secularization post the Second World War, at least in the United Kingdom, it's been much more delayed in the United States?
Yes, I mean, I think that the religious Judeo-Christian values that have been, brought into the secular world by
objective parameters stand against degeneracy in every form,
by a diverse society, and then sort of secularized in terms of the way they've been embedded in our laws. Yes, I mean, I think a lot of the Enlightenment values that originally had their roots in Judeo-Christian culture, I think those are beginning to wear away. I think that we're suffering from what one author called the cut flower syndrome, that if the idea is the Judeo-Christian values have to undergird a system of Western liberalism where there has to be
the pro-terrorist radical leftists at the back of the room and throughout the room are so enraged hearing two, as they view them, white men talking about morality. They are enraged by that because they only view the world through the reprehensible lens of identity politics. They aren't actually able to vet ideas, only engage in most primitive forms of tribalism.
Common agreement in terms of the things that we hold dear and the kind of good that we hold.
That's what I mean. There's a strata here. There's a separation of how people are operating. One group of people is openly pro-terrorist, hating morality, morally relativistic, wants the destruction of Israel, and the other group is people who can think.
The highest good in order for there to be room to stick and move within that good and toleration of minorities and the marginalized within that same framework. It has to be an agreed upon framework. When you cut that off from its fundamental religious roots, it's very difficult for the flowers to survive. They can survive for a little while in water, but eventually they wither.
So if you don't think... Can I have one more question very quickly?
Fine.
Thank you. If you don't think then that the loss of a common moral code is inevitable, do you therefore think you'll see massive, rapid desecularization of the West?
I think that you will see that. I do think that you're going to see
You're
people...
already seeing it. It's fantastic. Statistics show that young men graduating high school are more than 50% conservative. That is remarkable considering the amount of indoctrination and demonization of their intrinsic genetic qualities like masculinity and the predisposition to order, logic, understanding the world, making value, creating things, and also being heterosexual. All of those things, as they are being demonized, are not going away, which is an incredibly positive sign.
In community, I think that we've seen extraordinary...
That's the reason why you see the rise of Andrew Tate and people like asking how do I better myself in light of the fact that the entire system is designed to not only ruin me, but ruin my nation.
Isolation of people, atomization of people. This is particularly true during COVID. And I think people are seeking a sense of community. I think, unfortunately, many people are seeking community in political movements, which is quite dangerous.
Right.
Atomized individuals tend to band together in revolutionary movements. But I think the substitute for that would be to re-engage.
Yeah, and it combines very dangerously in the psychopathology of antisocial disorders, as well as the degenerately feminine temperaments that are being pushed onto men and cultivated in young women to resent everything that resembles accountability.
A lot of the local and important institutions that used to provide the foundation for a happy life for people, and those traditionally were family, church, synagogue, mosque. Right? I mean, those would be the things that people engage in. Thank you.
It's funny how the only thinker isn't wearing a hijab and doesn't want the destruction of Israel. Oh, that's funny.
Thank you very much for
I'm waiting for someone to just totally hijack this and just start like screaming. I hate the Shapiro, my feelings matter.
Here. I wanted to ask you a question about the American political climate. So your analysis of the previous 2 American presidential elections and your forecast for the upcoming 2024 election is that the candidate against whom the election is a referendum will lose. Do you think this is an inevitable consequence of America's 2-party political system, or just a recent trend caused by the nature of candidates offered to the American electorate?
No, I think it's probably an inevitable consequence of a 2-party trend. I think it's very difficult to think of a presidential election that was a positive referendum.
If there were to be a third party, it would be some sort of nationalist movement, but I don't see that happening, quite frankly.
On the candidate. Probably the last one in America was 2008, where people positively voted for Barack Obama because they thought of him as a transformative figure. But that's a rarity. The usual nature of politics
and that's not really predicated on a candidate itself, but a moment in time.
Sort of negative in
you can't just replicate that by being the next Barack Obama.
Orientation. And so I don't think there's anything unnatural about that. My only call has been that both parties should nominate somebody who's sane. The first party to rationality in the United States is likely to win. Unfortunately, we have on the one hand a geriatric doctrine, and on the other hand we have Donald Trump. So it's the American people chooses its own candidates, and as H.L. Mencken said, the American democracy is the theory that...
It's funny how the left's response to Donald Trump is elect incompetence, and the right's response to the endless degeneracy of the left is, we need a bombastic alpha male billionaire. That's really funny. You'd think that the left is like, oh, we need to engage in competence to win the voter, but instead they're just like, no, we'll just let in illegal immigrants instead. It's disturbing.
You ought to get what you deserve. The American people are about to get what they deserve good and hard, so that is what it is.
So on that note, do you think that the states would benefit from a stronger third party like we have in the UK or in Canada, for example?
I don't think that the system lends itself to it very well because, again, it's not a parliamentary democracy. I mean, the idea in the United States is very much built around this sort of binary 2-party system. It's very difficult for a third party to make serious inroads. What we have seen over the past few years, it's a lot easier to take over one of the major parties. Right? Trump effectively took over the Republican...
Yes, and I would also say that there's something to the yin and yang aspect, the order and chaos aspect, which naturalistically leads itself to the format of there being a 2-party system. I think that it's actually intelligent.
Party from the inside and changed it around himself. And you can see something similar that could easily happen inside the Democratic Party. Actually, Bernie Sanders has been quite successful at moving the Democratic Party significantly further to the left than it was even 10 or 15 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to the member in the right hand here.
Did Bernie Sanders move the party to the left? I don't think so, because he wasn't. I don't think he was truly rallied behind and loved in the way that Trump was, or the way Obama was. I think instead what happened is the spirit of resentment pushed the left over the precipice of making sense, and then they just continued in free fall to the point where they're saying we need to castrate children and support Hamas.
Oh, Ben. Yeah, I've also watched you from 2015, but then I grew up.
This guy still couldn't make eye contact with Ben. Very sad.
I became a lefty, but yeah.
You could tell that he's disoriented and discombobulated.
So I wanted to ask. So you're one of the more common sense Republicans out there because you're not a complete Trump fanatic, right? I think you support Ron DeSantis, is that right?
In the current primaries, yeah I'd vote for DeSantis in a primary.
Very good. So I was thinking, why do you not, let's say Trump wins, why do you not come out and support Biden? Because
what?
You clearly don't like Biden, right? And everyone has their own political views. But Trump seems to me to be a fundamentally serious threat to American democracy, which Biden simply isn't.
Dude, we had extended peace when Trump was president. 0 wars. And we actually made peace with our enemies. Now we're in multiple wars. Crazy.
So Trump's...
The leftist hive mind is actually opposed to reality. That's what you see. They invert truth. Oh, Trump was president during extended time of peace? We must say that he's a threat and a danger. They invert truth.
Called for the suspension of the Constitution, and he's facilitated an insurrection. Biden's done neither of those things. He's
No, wrong. Incorrect. False.
been fairly milquetoast president. So why don't you endorse Biden?
So I disagree with some of the premises of the question. So number one, as far as Donald Trump being a serious danger to democracy, I think in the best of his imaginations, he probably would be in many ways. But this constitutional system is extremely durable. January 6th was not, in fact, a serious threat to American democracy. It was a serious threat to American order. It was not a serious threat to American democracy. There was no point in time on January 6th.
Correct.
Where there was a real possibility that a military coup had been launched and Donald Trump would retain the presidency after January 6th. It just was not going to happen. So the institutions of the United States and the legal institutions remain quite strong, and we're able to hem in whatever Donald Trump's peculiar desires are on the one hand. On the other hand, there are different types of threats to democracy. So Joe Biden, for example, has used the power...
The greatest threat to democracy is anti-morality, anti-laws, the inversion of truth, the inversion of right and wrong, so that burning buildings and supporting terrorists becomes virtuous. That is the greatest threat to democracy, and it's perpetrated by the left.
Power of the executive branch in new and exorbitant ways. Most obviously, for example, when you tried to use OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety Administration, he tried to use that to cram down, for example, in terms of foreign policy. I'm obviously much more in alignment with his actual political...
It's interesting how conservatives can make sense of ideas and disagree with each other as individuals, but the radical left is totally incapable of that, because they are... their entire ideology is mandated and dictated by adherence to the Marxist ideology. There can be no absence of conformity, because it is conformity and your organization within the identitarian group of conformity that determines your virtue and status as a person. That's why Marxism is so toxic. That's why it's so dangerous.
Position.
Just go a little bit further. It's dangerous because it abdicates people of individual responsibility and the individual responsibility to make sense of ideas and to judge right and wrong for themselves, which is actually the best defense against tyranny. And the only way to really prevent tyranny from taking over, actually, is people thinking as individuals, deciding what makes sense. And what equips them to do that is reason, logic, rationality, intellectual coherence, which you can trace back all the way to Athens, as a force that has lifted humanity out of the ashes, the ability for humanity to transcend their primitive barbarism and identitarianism.
Than I am with Joe Biden. As far as the threat to democracy, as I say, one is more subtle and one is more obvious. And in some cases, the more obvious is actually the easier to reject.
Well, I don't know. This position seems quite strange to me, because you've essentially conceded that Trump does not believe in American democracy. He doesn't believe in American institutions. But
I think he believes in Trump and pretty much nothing else, yes. I think he believes in Donald Trump and not much else.
Yeah, precisely. But, okay, sure, he might not be able to create the Trump dictatorship, but is it really healthy for a democracy to have a leader in charge who does not believe in any of America's institutions? You know, say what you like about Biden.
I think that Trump does actually totally believe in the Constitution, by the way, so there's not really any evidence that he doesn't.
Let's go to a member in the front here.
Hi Ben, so good to have you. I wanted to go back to the current conflict, and I was wondering, given that obviously there's one side which does have a respect for human rights, as you pointed out, they try to go about their response, Israel tries to go about their response in in the best way possible, at least I would argue. And you've got another side that has a fundamentally different alignment of values that does not have regard for the civilian lives. And in purely practical terms, that makes it quite difficult to wage war in a civilized way, as far as you can say that. So in terms of perhaps drawing a potential I don't want to call it path to victory, but a path to defeating Hamas, but reconciling that with our values and, you know, killing as few civilians as we can.
What a sophisticated question. Think about what he just said to Ben, and think of how enraged the radical leftist becomes when they start to piece together 5 minutes later, because their brains are slow, what just transpired. What he just asked Ben was, given our moral superiority in every conceivable way, how will we beat them while still being morally superior? Oh my gosh, that is such a Western question. I love it, dude. That is what we need more of. These incoherent presuppositions of the left of Hamas is equal to Jews is such a non-starter. We have to reject that entirely. There is just no moral equivalence between people that like murder children in their beds and rape women and kidnap them. There's no moral equivalence. And everyone that assumes that there is, and everyone that acts as though there is, outs themselves as an intellectual weakling. This is what we need.
Benjamin Netanyahu and so on. So could you draw a possible sort of realistic path to victory that might reconcile?
So I'm not privy to the sort of military planning of the Israeli administration. I'm not in their security councils. What I will say is that any position that Israel takes that does not end with Hamas off the board is going to be extraordinarily dangerous for the future of the state of Israel. So,
correct. Yes, exactly. Total annihilation of the terrorists.
Oh. That is the end goal. Everybody understands that to be the end goal. It's dangerous not only because Hamas has proved itself to be significantly more dangerous than everybody assessed Hamas to be, but also because that leads to a perception of Israeli military weakness and inability to protect its own citizens that leads other groups, including in the West Bank and also in the northern border by Hezbollah, to get involved. And that's incredibly
Sounds kind of Game of Thrones, which, by the way, I might watch tonight as I eat dinner. But you know what? It's true. Go full Tyrion Lannister on that bitch. I don't even know what that means.
Dangerous. So is there a best of all possible worlds? Yeah, the best of all possible worlds is for
more like Tywin, am I right?
Hamas to surrender. As I think everybody of good heart should agree at this point. If you don't agree that Hamas should surrender, I doubt why. I have some serious.
It means that you're an evil person, and that's what we see. People admitting that they're evil people. Any person that supports Hamas is self-evidently an evil human, and it's really heartening to see how many people are leaving blue cities while we see people in blue cities marching for Hamas hours after they raped women. That is so fulfilling to my eyes. Obviously, it's gut-wrenching to see that there are those evil people living in these cities. But honestly, they should be left to just crumple alone and wallow in their own slime of moral relativism and lawlessness, which they propagate and prop up, honestly.
Questions about why that, again, very difficult for me to find any reason other than Jew hatred why you wouldn't want Hamas to, even for the sake of Palestinians, why you wouldn't want Hamas to go. That would be the most obvious.
But see, that's using logic and rationality.
Is Hamas going to do that? Probably not, which means that it's in everybody's interest, or should be in everybody's interest, to depose Hamas as quickly and easily as possible. They've made it incredibly difficult. Obviously, the tunnel system, they have some 300 miles of tunnel underneath the ground. They've stolen billions of dollars in order to pursue that. They've built up resources under there. It's going to be a slog. It's going to take a lot longer than people think it's going to take. And it's going to cost, by the end of this, it's going to cost a lot of Israeli soldiers' lives, because they're going to have to attempt to go into serious urban terrain and wage this war. So I wish I saw a good way out. I don't see a good way out. I think people, there are a lot of happy solutions.
There are missiles that can ground penetrate, but they tend to be basically nuclear weapons. So short of nuclear weapons, it's going to take a long time.
Solutions that we tend to think about in the West, but very few of them tend to materialize in war.
I suppose such are the realities of war. And I just wanted to say on a personal note, as a citizen of the Czech Republic, I think we stand very firmly with Israel.
I appreciate that.
History of doing so, and I hope everything is resolved as quickly as possible. And through your personal connection as well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Hello. So you have expressed pro-life sentiments before. How can you, so when women from low-income backgrounds, often in places where abortions are illegal. I've lived in a country where abortion's been illegal. They go and...
This guy talks as though he's you-know-what, and let's just say that he's probably disgraced from wherever he's from.
People from low-income backgrounds are the ones who have to do unsafe abortions at home, who have to go and...
Have to murder their kids because the tyrannical right is preventing them from murdering. They're holding them accountable. Therefore, they have to avoid accountability. They have to deny accountability. That's what they have to do. And by the way, that's what you're doing when you're having an abortion. You're denying the accountability of your actions. So this is at the crux of the central leftist axiom. He just admitted what it was. Avoid accountability. They have to. He used the word have to. I hope Ben hammers him for that.
Back in in backstreet vendors places. How can
You have to go to a dark alley to get an abortion because you have to avoid accountability no matter what. You have to.
justify this as being safe for women to have just safety of
Oh, look, he
women's
stumbled on murdering babies.
health and women's rights.
Health and women's rights equals murdering babies. Oh, dude, see, they invert reality. That's all the left does. That's what evil does. It perverts and twists. It never creates. I'm impressed by how many leftists came into this room, by the way, given how many people are clapping. You can tell that they're clapping extra loud, so it's probably like only 35, 40% of the audience.
The argument in favor of
I'd say 30, actually.
legislation against abortion is to protect the life of the unborn. The ideal would be that people don't violate the law in order to pursue an abortion. If you violate the law in pursuit of an abortion, you're
It's
obviously...
just so simple, dude. It's so simple. Morality is really actually very, very easy to understand because it's intuitive. It's ingrained in what makes us humans. And that's why we can realize it. That's the reason why we know every life has intrinsic worth. Leftist, it's not just moral relativism, it's deeper than moral relativism. They seek to flip everything that we know intrinsically, because anything you know intrinsically is a threat to them. Because in postmodern neo-Marxism, certainty is a threat. Objectivity is oppression. Truth itself becomes the enemy. This is how perverted they are.
Violating the law. I mean, I'm not sure what to say about that other than I'm not interested in women dying in back alley abortions because I'm not in favor of abortions.
Thank you. We don't have very long left, so just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask two final questions. One of them is, this didn't come up yet in the interview, but you've been quite vocal in your criticisms of the Black Lives Matter movement, stating that
They are self-evidently Marxist.
lives matter. But throughout this interview, you have not equally defended Palestinian lives, the civilian Palestinian lives, in the way that you have Israeli civilian lives. So when it comes to Israel-Palestine...
All Palestinian lives lost are the fault of Hamas for preventing them from fleeing. They should tell them, hey, we fucked up, guys. We just did another 9/11, and they're coming for us. You need to get out. But they're not going to do that because they want to play the victims. They know that the degenerate leftists who presuppose Marxist axioms will be their allies.
Do all lives not matter then?
So first off, it's a wild mischaracterization of a position that I've obviously expressed to you. You literally asked me, do I value Palestinian lives?
So we know she's a degenerate. I didn't watch the initial speech he made, so I wasn't able to gather that.
I value Jewish lives. And I said, yes, I don't believe that the act of evil in targeting a Jewish child is the same as a military attempting to target a terrorist who's hiding behind a base.
Is this the state of Oxford? Truly pathetic.
So don't mistake the position, please. When it comes to the all lives matter position, of course...
They don't even believe in mistaking positions. They believe in saying whatever adheres to the leftist ideology because they don't believe in the merit of ideas. That's the reason why this is the best of them and they get decimated. He shouldn't be able to decimate them like this. This is Oxford, for crying out loud. How do you get people making first-degree logic errors? It's insane.
I believe that all lives matter. My fundamental disagreement with Black Lives Matter is I don't agree with their premise. Their premise is that black people in the United States are being uniquely targeted by law enforcement for murder, and I don't think that the statistics prove that. I don't think the evidence is there for that. So I don't agree with the fundamental premise of the Black Lives Matter movement. Not that I don't believe that black lives don't matter. Of course Black Lives matter. They matter exactly the same amount as every other.
Yeah, exactly. Black Lives Matter is a terrible movement because it's run by Marxists who are psychopathic.
But again, there's I think, a willful attempt to misinterpret my position on some of these issues.
Okay, thank you. And one question that we asked...
See, and she didn't respond to that. She just said, okay. See, they just want to throw mud at the wall and hope anything sticks. They don't even feel personal responsibility to vet what they say. And you saw it just there. Okay, thank you. She didn't even look at him. She just looked down. She didn't even acknowledge that she was called out for making an error because she doesn't feel responsibility for making an error because she doesn't even believe in herself as an individual. She's only a grain of sand, a cog in the machine of the radical leftist deformed machine.
All of our guests who come here, if you could leave our members with one thing to think about, what would it be?
I mean, I think that tonight, the thing that I would leave with is the same thing that I came in with, which is that there are certain values that are worth protecting. There are certain values that are worth protecting. And one of those values is the value of understanding, the value of understanding clear moral differentiation, which obviously has been completely obscured I think tonight we've seen some evidence of people obscuring some clear moral differentiation between the targeted burning of babies in their homes in front of their mothers by shoving them in an oven and people attempting to kill terrorists who are themselves putting civilians in harm's way in violation of the rules of war and the Geneva Convention.
Yeah. What you're seeing too is the purposeful evil, the purposeful misrepresentation. These people are not interested in truth. They're not interested in ideas, which is the reason why everyone that watches this who is able to think knows that these people are objectively embarrassed by reality and facts. People that aren't able to think are just enraged that Ben Shapiro exposes their fraudulence. That's the strata at which there's operation going on.
And if you're one of the people who's making this sort of moral equivalence, I ask for you to check your own heart. And if you're one of the people who's watching people make this moral equivalence and being convinced by the supposed complexity of the issue, I ask for you to check your brain. Thank you.
Owned and destroyed. Hey, I said this was going to be a long video, but it was definitely worth it, that's for sure. Guys, subscribe to the channel. I saw this late at night, but I knew that we had to approach this because Ben Shapiro is such... he's such a titan. And there's a lot of Ben Shapiro hate, by the way, but I think a lot of the Ben Shapiro hate isn't even directed at what he has to say or the merit of his ideas, but instead at some sort of, oh, he's short and not Andrew Tate type of disdain. But and I understand that not everyone has an IQ high enough to understand articulated speech, but if you are someone who can understand words, I suggest you check out what he has to say because it's all very intelligent. With that being said, guys, subscribe.